You don't have to react. The quiet power of stillness. Part 1. The one who stands still amid the storm. In a world where everything is constantly in motion, someone always saying something, social media endlessly churning with drama, outside filled with honking horns, urgency, and rush. Imagine a person standing still, not because they can't hear, not because they're avoiding, but because they choose not to be swept away. This person isn't meditating with eyes closed in the mountains. They walk through life with the calmness of a still lake, even as storms rage around them. Someone hurls an insult. They hear it, but don't react. Someone cuts ahead. They see it, but don't lose themselves. Someone lashes out. Yet they keep their tone steady, eyes clear, and breath deep. Not because they don't feel hurt, but because they don't let others determine the quality of their mind. They don't need anyone else to change. They change themselves. And through that, they become unshakable. You can become that person too, if you have the courage to pause and look directly at yourself. Part 2. The emotional spiral. Why are we so easily pulled away? A single unfriendly glance, and you feel unsettled. A sarcastic comment, and you feel the urge to retaliate. A message left on seen with no reply, and your mind begins to spiral. Why is that? Why can the smallest triggers stir such a storm inside you? Is it because you're too sensitive? Number. It's because you are human. Humans don't react to the world as it is. We react to the world as we perceive it. Every emotional flare-up doesn't come from reality itself, but from how your mind interprets that reality. An unfriendly look, they must hate me. A small critique, I'm not good enough. Being ignored, I don't matter. And suddenly you feel anger, sadness, panic. But if you take a step back and observe, you'll see it's not the world speaking to you. It's you speaking to yourself. It's not the things themselves that disturb us, but our interpretations of them. Epictetus. If you're unaware of this, you'll live your life in reactivity. Someone says something, you snap back. Someone hurts you, you strike. The world doesn't go your way, you lose control. But if you begin to observe yourself, you'll notice. Some emotions aren't rooted in the present, but in old wounds. Some reactions aren't reasonable, but protective patterns of the ego. Some assumptions aren't true, just stories told by a tired mind. And from that awareness, a pause arises. In that pause, you gain the power to choose, not to react immediately, not to believe every emotion at face value, not to let the mind carry you away like a flood. You're no longer the one being controlled. You become the one who observes. When you observe, you separate yourself from your emotions. And only then can you begin to be truly free. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Marcus Aurelius. That is the beginning of someone who no longer lets others decide their inner state. Because you begin to see emotions are not truths, they're signals. Reactions are not mandatory, they're choices. And peace does not come from controlling others. Peace comes from observing yourself and not letting yourself be swept away. But the reason we're so easily carried away isn't just personal psychology. It's also a system, a world unconsciously feeding instant reactivity. And that is where we'll continue in the next part, the trap of the modern mind. And remember, What pulls you away isn't the stimulus itself, it's how deeply you identify with it. The more you believe emotions are facts, the more easily you're manipulated. The more you believe thoughts are you, the more easily you're hurt. Like someone who forgets they're just watching a movie and starts yelling, crying, and raging at every scene. You forget that your mind is also a theater, and emotions are just fleeting frames on the screen. If you begin to sit back a little, to observe instead of reacting, you'll notice something strange. Anger loses its power. Harsh words no longer have the ability to wound you deeply, and within you, a quiet space begins to form, small but steady like a rock in the waves. Part 3. The Trap of the Modern Mind. You weren't born to react this way. You were trained. The modern world is a system designed to make you react as quickly as possible. An economy driven by attention, a social media landscape fed by conflict, a rhythm of life fueled by urgency. All of it leaves you no space to breathe, to pause, to think. Part 4. Modern Conditioning, the Emotional Trigger Ecosystem. You are not alone. The world around you, from how social media functions, to the way news is delivered, to the pace of modern life, has all contributed to building an ecosystem of emotional triggers. If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable. Seneca. If you don't know what's steering your emotions, anything can throw you off course. We are living in an age where emotions are optimized for consumption. Social media algorithms don't choose what's best. They choose what keeps you there the longest. And that's usually what provokes the strongest reactions: anger, envy, conflict. You consume them unconsciously every day, and slowly you start to believe this is what the real world is. You see someone flaunt their success, you feel inadequate. You read a negative post, you feel angry. You see others being loved, you feel small, not because you are weak, but because you are living in an ecosystem designed to awaken the reactive part of you, not the mindful one. You're surrounded by speed. You have no time to pause and ask, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? Do I even want to react? You're pressured to respond immediately. You're encouraged to speak out now. You're pushed to express opinions constantly and as intensely as possible. This isn't your fault, but if you're not aware, you become a product of that system. The mind that is anxious about future events is miserable. Seneca. That system doesn't give you space to think. It gives you only two choices: react or be left behind. And in that process, you lose one of the greatest human powers, the power to choose how you respond to life. But the good news is, you can reclaim it. You can create a white space in a day filled with noise. Turn off notifications. Step away from the screen. Take a 10-minute walk without bringing anything. Sit still and listen to your heartbeat. You don't need to fight the entire system. You only need to create a silence long enough so you can hear your inner voice again. And when you do this every day, you begin to break the cycle. Trigger, reaction. You begin to rebuild your inner strength. You retrain your attention span, the very thing social media has slowly worn down. To be calm is the highest achievement of the self. Zen proverb. Remember, peace doesn't come from the absence of triggers. Peace comes from no longer being ruled by them. We are living in a world that makes us forget our own breath. Every tap on a screen is a flash of dopamine. Every shocking headline is a strike to the adrenal system. Your emotions no longer belong to you. They're being manipulated by what you see before you even realize it. He who is not a master of himself is the slave of his circumstances. Epictetus. You think you're acting by choice, but you're reacting by habit. You think you're choosing, but you're being led. And you believe your anger, jealousy, and anxiety come from circumstances, when in truth, they come from a mind that has not yet been trained. To reclaim your freedom, you don't need to abandon the modern world. You only need to remember the pause is real if you choose to create it. Part 5. The pause is power, practicing non-reaction. You can't stop the world from touching you, but you can choose how you respond. And in every response, there is one thing simple yet powerful: the pause. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Viktor Frankl. That moment, when you haven't said anything yet, haven't done anything yet, but simply see, simply know, that is where inner power begins. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. You've been conditioned to believe. You must respond immediately. You must take a stance. You must speak up. You must prove yourself right. And if you don't, you'll be seen as weak, submissive, or without a voice. In truth, you're just trapped in a loop. Trigger, reaction, trigger, reaction. You check your phone the second a notification pops up. You open an email mid-meeting just because of a red dot. You get annoyed when someone doesn't see your message. Your breath quickens when someone speaks harshly, and your mind instantly thinks it must fight back. All of this is reflex, not choice. The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have. Epictetus. The problem is this: the current system is designed for you to lose control. One touch, and you're angry. One look, and you feel hurt. One criticism, and you question your worth. The mind gets swept away because it has never been trained to stay still. You lack inner space. You lack the inner muscle to tolerate discomfort without reacting. And you don't realize this is exactly what makes you easy to control. As long as you let others decide your internal state, you remain dependent. As long as your sense of self is built on external validation, you'll always feel insecure. And the heartbreaking part is, you think it's just your instinct, but it's not. It's a learned behavior, trained by a world running on dopamine, viral content, and fleeting outrage. Be careful lest in fighting the monsters, you become one. Nietzsche. We live in a society where negative emotions are amplified to create influence, where speed is valued over wisdom, where reaction is mistaken for strength. And if you don't pause, you stop being yourself. You become a cog in the machine. But you are not a victim. You can withdraw. You can observe. You can begin to change. From the inside, you can retrain your mind, redirect your reflexes. You can choose not to react anymore. And in doing so, you break the trap. Quietly but powerfully. Imagine you are a puppet, each string tied to an emotion: anger, anxiety, fear of abandonment. And every time someone pulls one, you jerk, without hesitation, without awareness, without control. That is how the modern world operates you, not through reason, but through dopamine. Each time you react, you're rewarded. A sense of being right, a moment of attention, a hit of influence. But then what? You're drained, you feel empty, and so you scroll again, waiting for the next trigger. Man conquers the world by conquering himself. Zeno of Citium. If you want to be free, you must cut the strings. One by one. Pause. Observe. Break the reflex. No one can do this for you. But if you have the courage to begin, you'll find it is the quietest, yet most powerful revolution you'll ever start. Most people don't live in the pause. They live in the realm of reflex. Insulted, retaliate. Rejected, withdraw. Ignored, explode with anger. But if you begin practicing the pause, even just 3 seconds, you will feel a shift. 1. Practice breathing. When emotion rises, say nothing. Inhale deeply, count 1, 2, 3. Hold, count 1, 2. Exhale, slow and steady. Repeat for 3 rounds. That is how you bring your mind back to the present. 2. Observe the body. Anger often comes with tight shoulders, a heavy chest, a burning face. Anxiety shows up as stomach tension, sweaty palms. When you recognize emotion through the body, you step outside the story that's been triggering you. 3. Write instead of respond. Before hitting, send on a reactive message. Open your notes app and write everything out. Thoughts, emotions, words. No filter. Then leave it there for 15 minutes. Often, you won't want to send it anymore. 4. Micro meditation. Just 2 minutes. Close your eyes. Focus on your breath. When a thought arises, simply say to yourself, I'm thinking. Then return to the breath. No resistance. Just stay. He who angers you conquers you. Elizabeth Kenny. Each time you pause, you strengthen your inner power. Like lifting emotional weights, you are building strength through stillness. Why does this matter? Because if you don't create the pause, the world will take over your response. You become a tool instead of the one with inner sovereignty. Yet just by stepping back a little, you can choose not to react. Choose a different response. Choose no response at all and still remain at peace. And this does not make you weak. On the contrary, it makes you untouchable. The wise man doesn't give the storm permission to enter his soul. Marcus Aurelius. You can start today. Before you speak, pause for 1 breath. Before replying to a difficult message, count to 5. Each day, pick 1 moment to practice pause instead of react. At first, it will be difficult. Instinct will resist. The ego will protest. But you'll only need to hold 5 seconds, then 10, and you'll begin to see reactivity loses its grip. You reclaim yourself. True freedom doesn't come from controlling the outside world. It comes from your ability to pause, to observe, and to respond in alignment with your values. The pause is not delay. The pause is power. The pause is where you remember you are not your emotions. You are the observer. You are not your reflexes. You are the one who chooses how to respond. You don't need to react to prove you exist. You only need to stay in stillness and strength. Part 6. The philosophy of inner power. Reframe, reclaim, respond. When the world is in chaos, people often try to control everything outside them. But Stoic philosophy teaches, true freedom comes from mastering what's within. To do that, practice 3 steps. Reframe, reclaim, respond. 1. Reframe. Redefine the situation. You can't always change the situation, but you can change how you view it. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Marcus Aurelius. An insult can be a chance to practice composure. A failure can be an opportunity to start anew. A heartbreak can be a lesson in letting go and growing up. Every experience is a canvas, and you hold the brush that paints its meaning. To reframe is to reclaim the language of your story. When you rename an experience, your emotions toward it change too. 2. Reclaim. Take back your inner sovereignty. You can't control what others do, say, or think about you, but you can always control what you allow into your inner world. No one can hurt you without your consent. Epictetus. Your mind is sacred territory. Each time you react in anger or impulse, you hand over control to someone else. They say one word and you spring up like a coiled wire. That's not strength. That's dependence. Reclaim is to return to yourself and ask, do I really want to react? It is to remind yourself, I am not my emotions. It is to look deeply into anger, anxiety, and see them for what they are. Just passing waves. You are the lake beneath, still, deep, unmoved. 3. Respond. Respond instead of react. Reaction is instinct. Response is a conscious choice. When you react, you act from a wounded ego. When you respond, you act from values and inner peace. For example, when criticized, instead of snapping back, you pause, listen, and say, thank you for the feedback. Whether they're right or wrong, you still stand firm in your composure. Speak only if it improves upon the silence. Mahatma Gandhi. To respond does not mean to be weak. It is a deeper strength, the strength of knowing that you could react, but you choose not to, because you have something more precious to protect, your inner stillness. The essence of inner power. The 3 R's, reframe, reclaim, respond, are not slogans. They are a way of life. When you reframe your situation, you reclaim meaning. When you reclaim your inner authority, you step out of the victim role. When you respond consciously, you embody inner maturity, and in each of those acts, you become untouchable, not because you are cold, but because you are conscious, not because you are numb, but because you've chosen what is worthy of your energy. A fit body, a calm mind, a house full of love. These things cannot be bought. They must be earned. Naval Ravikant. That is the reward for your practice, and it begins in the simplest of places. A single moment when you pause and ask, do I really want to react? And when you practice this long enough, you'll realize something profound. You are no longer ruled by circumstance. People may still behave without self-awareness. Social media may still be chaotic. Life may still offer moments of pain and disappointment. But inside, you've built a sturdier foundation. You become unshakable. No longer a creature of reflex, but a presence of response. No longer afraid of being misunderstood, because you understand yourself. You can walk through a chaotic world while keeping a clear mind and a grounded heart. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Epictetus. This is not an abstract ideal. It is the fruit of a conscious life, where moment by moment you train your spiritual muscle, reframe your thoughts, reclaim your inner sovereignty, respond with intention. Each of these acts is small, but practiced daily, they bring you closer to a version of yourself that is stronger, calmer, and truly untouchable. That is real power. And it begins with a simple decision: not to let anyone else define the state of your inner world. Part 7. Conclusion. Becoming untouchable. Peace doesn't come from everything going your way. It comes from not being carried away by everything that happens. This is not avoidance. It is inner strength. It is not numbness. It is awareness. It is not withdrawal. It is choosing what's truly worthy. You don't refrain from reacting because you are weak. You refrain because you are too strong to be controlled by someone else. If you are easily provoked, you are easily controlled. Epictetus. In a world where everyone scrambles to react, you are the one who pauses, observes, chooses, and responds from your core values, not from fleeting impulse. You no longer need to win every argument. You need to keep your inner peace. You no longer need to prove anything. You become the kind of person who doesn't need to be proven. And in that quiet moment, you cross an invisible threshold. You become untouchable, not because you are unmoved, but because you stand still in the storm, not because you are distant, but because you guard your peace like a sacred treasure. Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Epictetus. From this point on, you are no longer manipulated by others, no longer carried away by mood swings, no longer chasing news, praise, or approval because you have already accepted yourself. You become solid ground, a place others can look to and realize peace is real. And that journey, it doesn't come from a course, a book, or a beautiful philosophy. It comes from small daily practices, pausing before you react, asking yourself, is this really worth my energy? Writing down one moment a day when you chose peace over conflict. Peace is not a condition, it is a choice, and that choice must be practiced daily, in every small interaction, in every unconscious reflex, in every glance, every word, every message. And if you still fail sometimes, that's okay. What matters is not being perfect, but returning to yourself a little sooner each time. Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. Marcus Aurelius. No one is born steady as a mountain, but anyone can learn to pause, to observe, and to choose again. That is true freedom. That is untouchable strength. That is you in your clearest form. Part 8, Real Stories. Philosophy only truly lives when it touches real people, in the middle of real life. Below are short stories adapted for an American audience, but preserving the spirit of Stoicism, steadiness, awareness, and agency. Story 1, John, project manager in San Francisco. John had a reputation for being hot-tempered during meetings. One day when a client harshly criticized him in front of his entire team, instead of reacting, he paused, took a deep breath, and calmly said, "I appreciate the feedback. We'll work on it." The meeting ended with respect, and from that moment on, his team learned, power doesn't always come from reacting. Sometimes power is stillness. Story 2, Maria, single mom in Texas. Maria, mother of 2 energetic kids, used to snap whenever the house was messy. But after reading Epictetus, she adopted a new habit. Whenever she felt anger rising, she would get a glass of water, drink slowly, and breathe. She wouldn't yell. She simply cleaned up in silence. And slowly her children learned calmness through her quiet, loving example. Story 3, Emily, senior student in Chicago. Emily wrote a political essay and got fiercely attacked online. Instead of deleting the post or arguing back, she opened her journal and wrote one line. Non-reaction is strength. She logged off for 48 hours, went for walks, meditated, and returned with the lesson. She couldn't control others, but she could protect her own peace. Story 4, Jake, graphic designer in New York. After 6 rounds of revisions, Jake was ready to explode at his client. But instead of firing off an angry email, he told them he'd respond in 24 hours. After a quick meditation and a few lines of journaling, he sent a brief, respectful, professional reply. To his surprise, the client apologized. Story 5, Linda, the wife who chose compassion. Linda and her husband had a major disagreement about finances. Instead of arguing, she wrote a small note. "I choose not to react." She left it on the table. The next day, her husband came to apologize, and they calmly revised their financial plan together. Her steadiness was what led the way. These people are not superheroes. They did just one thing. They paused, they observed, and they chose a different kind of response. This is Stoicism in real life. Not just words, not moral lectures, but self-mastery in the moments that matter. You can be like them too. Start by writing down one situation where you reacted and ask yourself, what would have happened if, that day, you had chosen not to react? Philosophy only gains power when it becomes habit. A single day, if built on Stoic principles, can become a foundation of resilience. Morning practice, a Stoic start. No social media, no news. Begin with stillness. Part 9, Stoic routine, a daily practice guide. Philosophy only gains its true strength when it's transformed into habit. A single day, built on Stoic principles, can become a foundation of unshakable strength. Morning, Stoic start, no social media, no news. Begin in stillness. First, premeditatio malorum. Visualize what could go wrong. Today, someone might be rude to me. Something may not go my way. I might be misunderstood. This doesn't make you negative. It prepares your mindset. So when these things happen, you won't be surprised or lose your temper. You will be ready. 2. Morning journaling, short and simple. How do I want to live today? Which Stoic quality will I practice? Calm, self-control, non-judgment. In which situation will I choose not to react? 3. Mindful breathing, 3 minutes. Focus on your breath. Remember, I don't control the world, I only control my attitude. Daytime, awareness and choice. 1. Label your emotions. When you feel triggered, instead of reacting, quietly name the emotion. This is anger. This is hurt. This is envy. Naming it helps you separate from it. 2. Transform into conscious behavior. Ask yourself, will this reaction help anything? What would Marcus Aurelius do in this situation? If I had nothing to prove, how would I act? Third, reminder quotes, place them on your phone, journal, or watch. You don't control the world, but you control your response. Evening, Stoic Reflection 1. Evening Review. What did I do well today? When did emotion get the better of me? When did I stay calm and not react? Second note without judgment. No self-blame. Just observe and write, so tomorrow you can return to awareness a little sooner. Daily micro-practices. 3-minute meditation before replying to an upsetting message. Write down 3 moments today when you chose not to react. Each week, choose one Stoic virtue to practice. Courage, self-restraint, tranquility, kindness. No one is perfect, but habit is where strength is forged. A string of small, consistent days is what builds an inner strength solid as rock amid life's waves. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Marcus Aurelius. And if you practice this each day, not as a dogma, not as a forced ritual, you'll begin to notice. Calm is no longer distant. It becomes your natural default. And in that moment, you no longer try to stay calm. You become calm, the embodiment of awareness. Evening reflection, evening review. 1. Reflect on your day. What did I do well today? When did I let my emotions take over? When did I remain calm and choose not to react? 2. Record without judgment. Don't blame yourself. Simply note it down so that tomorrow you can return to awareness a little sooner. Daily micro-practices. 3-minute meditation before replying to a difficult message. Write down 3 moments today when you chose not to react. Every week, Choose one Stoic virtue to embody: courage, self-control, tranquility, compassion. No one is perfect, but habit is where strength is built, a string of small, steady days. That is what forms inner power, like rock beneath the crashing waves of life. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Marcus Aurelius. And if you practice this daily, without dogma, without pressure, you'll come to realize calm is no longer a distant goal. It becomes your natural way of being. And at that point, you don't have to try to stay calm. You are the calm trigger list, your personal emotional map. An essential part of Stoic practice is recognizing what tends to throw you off balance. Write it down. Types of people that easily frustrate you: judgmental, slow, controlling. Situations where you tend to overreact: traffic jams, public criticism, rejection. Phrases that trigger you emotionally: you don't get it. Why are you always? Awareness gives you a chance to meet the emotion with intention, instead of being swept away by surprise. What does a day of awareness look like? In the morning, you wake up 15 minutes earlier. You don't check your phone. You sit in silence. You write a few short lines about your inner intention for the day. When something upsetting happens, you breathe. You don't speak right away. You ask yourself, is this really worth losing my peace over? At noon, you revisit a Stoic quote. You jot down in your notebook, what did I just learn about myself? At night before sleeping, you don't beat yourself up for mistakes. You write down how you could do better next time. A day like that isn't perfect, but it is a day of inner sovereignty. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca. You are not a victim of emotion. You are a builder, restructuring your perception each day through small, conscious actions. And if this journey has resonated with you, help keep this flame alive. You can do something very simple. Subscribe to this channel so we can return to awareness together each day. Or share this video with someone who might be weary from life's chaos, because sometimes just one timely sentence, one small pause, is enough to help someone remember they are not controlled by emotion. They can choose another way to live. Thank you for being here, quietly yet firmly. The journey to becoming unshakable was never meant to be walked alone.